Socialist Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham wants to take on Keir Starmer and nick his job as Prime Minister, as confirmed in an exclusive interview with the Daily Telegraph.
We speak to the journalist who spoke to Burnham, Tony Diver, to find out whether Andy Burnham really can become the next Prime Minister and why he's such a political chameleon.
One of his defining features is his great loyalty to different Labour leaders, something he now appears to totally have abandoned when it comes to Keir Starmer. But he did serve. He served in all of those cabinets and shadow cabinets across all of those different leaders, which I think is what contributes to this kind of idea of him as a political chameleon who, when he's in Manchester, he's there in his Harrington jacket and his black jeans. When he's in Westminster, it's the Blairite suit and tie. If Corbyn's in, then he's on Corbyn's side. If Blair's in, he's on Blair's side. And I think that will be one, if it does ever come to it, that will be one of the hurdles that he has to overcome. Because what does Burnhamism look like?
Andy Burnham, the King of the North, Labour's answer to the Oasis brothers is mad for it. Because he wants to be the next Prime Minister. We know that, don't we? Because Tony Diver, who joins us in the Daily Tea studio, has interviewed the man. He's not held back. We'll come to you in a minute, Tony. Let's just listen to Andy Burnham. Thank goodness, on BBC Radio Manchester this morning, doubling down, Tony, on the interview he gave you.
When I left Westminster, which is almost 10 years ago now, I took a vow not to speak in code, to answer honestly, as people say politicians don't do. Well, I do try and do that. So I was asked a direct question by a journalist, and I gave an honest answer. And obviously that's been reported today. MPs were in touch with me. But let me also give an honest explanation of what I said to those MPs. It's not up to me. It's not my decision. That's a matter for you, for the party in Parliament. And also I said to them, and it's got to be about more than a personality contest. The Tories were just constantly going through this at the latter end of the time that they were in government. It's got to be about a plan, a proper plan for the country and a proper plan to beat reform.
That was Andy Burnham. Classic Burnham opening there. When I left Westminster, I made a pledge not to speak in code. He's such a ruddy, bloody, ordinary bloke, isn't he?
He's an honest broker.
Tony, in your interview with him, what did he precisely say in relation to his personal ambitions?
Well, I asked him the question that everyone has asked him, which is, do you want to be Prime Minister? Do you want to lead the Labour Party? And are you going to challenge Keir Starmer? And he gave me a strange answer, which is to say, it's not really up to me. It's up to Labour MPs. It's up to people in Westminster. They're the ones who get to choose who the Labour Party leader is. So I said, OK, well, do any of them want you to do it? And he said, yeah, actually quite a lot of them have contacted me over the summer and said that they would like me to stand. So there we go. Those two answers together tell you one thing, which is that Burnham wants it.
Yeah,
he certainly thinks the Labour MPs want it.
I love this. This is perfect political deflection. Look, it's not my ambition.
Yes.
At the end of the day, if other Labour MPs call on me to take on Starmer, then I will take one for the team and project myself as the next Labour leader and indeed Prime Minister.
It's so incredibly humble, isn't it?
It's so humble.
But also, it's as if there was an advertisement in the paper for traffic warden. Mrs. Brown, do you want to be the traffic warden? It's not up to me.
No. Ask the children.
See, he's all about talking normal, but normal people never speak that way, and this strange ambiguity and deflection all the time.
Well, I did make the point to him that it is up to him.
Yes, because he'd have to run.
He can't be forced to run to be Labour leader.
And let us say this right now, so it's out of the way. How would he physically do it? What does he have to do? Because we're talking about challenging Starmer by next May. What would he have to do to get there?
It is a complicated process, but quickly, he'd have to win a by-election, and there isn't one currently in Greater Manchester or anywhere in the northwest, so we'd have to have an MP stand down. A by-election would be called. He'd then have to be selected as the Labour candidate in that seat, which would require thumbs up from the NEC, the sort of committee that controls the Labour Party, which is in turn controlled by Keir Starmer and Morgan McSweeney, so he'd basically need the thumbs up from them. He'd need to be selected by local members as well. They'd have to give their consent. Then he'd have to run a campaign in the constituency, beating off Reform, who are actually doing pretty well in a lot of those seats.
Well,
not necessarily in Manchester Central, but certainly in the suburbs around Manchester. Reform is polling very well.
Haven't they? Yeah, Nigel Farage has said wherever he stands, he's going to have an epic battle on his hands because they'll put a reformer up against him.
He does have great popularity in Manchester. I mean, that's certainly true. Andy Burnham is a popular guy in Manchester. But in a lot of those seats, that Reform are the big challengers here. And
well, to be fair to him, he's the most popular Labour politician in the country right now, which isn't saying much.
That is not a high bar. I think Dracula and Genghis Khan poll above all the other Labour MPs. So let's imagine that someone kindly steps aside in his local area, that he gets the nomination, that he wins the seat. Once he's in Parliament, how does he become Prime Minister by May?
So then he turns up in Parliament, first day back into the hornet's nest, the place he says he hates so much. He then has to convince...
Having done all this to get back there.
He then has to convince 80 MPs to nominate him to challenge Starmer. You have to get to 20% of the Parliamentary Labour Party, which is 80 MPs at the moment on their current arithmetic, and that would trigger a leadership contest, which actually would then follow the same rules as the deputy leadership contest, which is going on at the moment. If Starmer wanted to stand against him to fight to keep his own job, he would be allowed to do that. So presuming that Starmer did that, or someone on the Starmer wing of the party, whether it's Wes Streeting or Rachel Reeves or Bridget Phillipson or whoever it is, he would then have to beat that person, and then he would become Prime Minister.
This is so interesting that this man has managed to manoeuvre himself now into being the left-wing candidate, having been a proud Blairite.
Yes.
Who is this man?
Yes. For those of us with memories long enough, he has had a blessed political career. He likes to play School of Hard Knocks, but he was a special advisor at 28. He was in Parliament by his 30s. He was a cabinet member by, I think, 38. I recall that he was a supporter of the Iraq War. He was an ultra-Blairite. Then under Gordon Brown, he was a supporter of Brown's agenda. He was an ultra-Brownite. He left Parliament. He ran for leadership twice, 2010 and 2015. He was opposed to Corbyn. He's regarded as anti-Corbynite. But he left Parliament, became Mayor of Manchester, been re-elected. There's a lot of evidence of economic success there. Can't take that away from him. But he also supported Keir Starmer for the leadership and said he was a fantastic bloke. Matthew Parris, in his inimitable way, tells a very funny joke. A Blairite, a Brownite, and a Starmerite walk into a bar, and the barman says, "How are you, Andy?"
You could add Corbynite to that, by the way. Tony, you uncovered that he is quite happy to lean into your party, our party. What's the name of the party? He was quite warm in his words towards Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana.
Well, actually, yeah. I mean, in terms of the British Constitution, the most radical thing that he suggested in the interview is introducing PR, proportional representation, getting rid of first past the post.
Why would Labour MPs support that? Sorry, carry on.
He says that the only way Labour is going to be able to consistently beat Reform or the Tories or whatever form the right-wing parties take in this country is to form a progressive majority, which he says would be Labour, the Lib Dems and the Greens, possibly the Corbyn party as well.
This is literally the
he
stuff of
didn't
Telegraph
like,
nightmares.
He didn't like Corbyn when he was Labour leader, but he's willing
doesn't
to
mind
consider
that.
entering a coalition in government.
Yeah, but
with
he's
him.
talking in Corbynista language now. He's talking
Yes.
about 50% higher rate of tax. He's talking about taxing properties in the southeast more because he's developed this sort of northern chip on his shoulder, even though he was educated at Cambridge and made his entire career in Westminster. He was a child of Thatcher, apparently radicalised to become a socialist by the miners' strike. This is the other kind of conceit around some of these politicians. He's literally born in 1970. By the time he gets to secondary school, thankfully for him, Thatcher's recovering the country from the hell of Labour in the 70s, and he is able to socially mobilise himself to Cambridge. And now he's positioning himself on the hard left purely out of political opportunism because he wants to catch all of those Labour MPs. If he wants to get to those 80 nominations, Tony, he wants to mop up all of those disgruntled Labour MPs who are on tiny majorities who don't think the party's left enough, but they think that Corbyn and Sultana are too left. So he's in the middle of he's between hard and far left.
Well, yeah, and I actually think there's something to be said about his relationship with Jeremy Corbyn, because he was actually, after the 2015 leadership election, which Corbyn won, to many people's surprise in the Labour Party, the only challenger to Corbyn from the 2015 race, who then went on to serve in the Corbyn shadow cabinet. And he stayed there until he stepped down as an MP in 2017. So that's two full years in the Corbyn shadow cabinet. Okay. Other sort of centre-right MPs who went into that shadow, people like Michael Duggar, for instance, who went into the Corbyn shadow cabinet, they resigned. Many of those other people resigned, or they refused to serve in the first place. And, you know, people that I've been speaking to about him say one of his defining features is his great loyalty to different Labour leaders, something he now appears to totally have abandoned when it comes to Keir Starmer. But he did serve. He served in all of those cabinets and shadow cabinets across all of those different leaders, which I think is what contributes to this kind of idea of him as a political chameleon who, when he's in Manchester, he's there in his Harrington jacket and his black jeans. When he's in Westminster, it's the Blairite suit and tie. If Corbyn's in, then he's on Corbyn's side. If Blair's in, he's on Blair's side. And I think that will be one, if it does ever come to it, that will be one of the hurdles that he has to overcome. Because what does Burnhamism look like?
I dug out an old interview that Burnham gave to Pink News, which I think is an insight into the man. This is from 2015. Pink News said to him, "You famously said that you are devoted to Everton, the Labour Party, and the Catholic Church. There are times when the last two of those clash, Labour and the Catholic Church, and I'm sure the first sometimes. For example, on sex and relationship education, a flagship Labour policy. A lot of Catholic schools are militantly opposed, saying it would violate their religious freedom. Burnham said to the Pink News, "They are wrong. The Catholic schools are wrong. Though I did say that he's devoted to Everton, Labour and the Catholic Church, and the church did have a part in my upbringing, I am not a regular churchgoer, I have to admit, even if that might cause me difficulty at home in terms of my kids' schools." And this, I think, sort of gives an insight into the many dimensions of Andy Burnham. There's the Andy Burnham who would say something as kind of culturally conservative, as "I'm devoted to Everton, the Labour Party, and the Catholic Church." There's the Andy Burnham who would then go and contradict church teaching to the Pink News to stress his social liberalism, that he's all in favour, for instance, of same-sex marriage. And then there's the Andy Burnham who reveals that he actually doesn't go to church, but his kids do go to faith schools.
So he's a very confused Catholic, I think we can conclude.
I don't know what it is. I just feel with this guy, it's difficult to pin down exactly who he is and what he believes in. And my question to you, Tony, is he a fantasist? Because the first thing I said to you, Camilla, this morning was, has he got a book out? Why is he doing this? Why is he talking to you? Why is he talking to the New Statesman? Why is he talking to the BBC? It would require almost like a Big Bang level of coincidence for him to be able to get into Parliament and replace Starmer. So it's almost very unlikely it's going to happen. So why is he going around the country proposing himself as an alternative leader when it's so unlikely to happen?
Well, I think he would say that he's got massive reservations about the way that the government's being run at the moment. He's got problems with the way that Number 10 is dealing with Labour MPs, the fact that on conscience issues, MPs, on the welfare cuts, for instance, MPs are not allowed to vote against the government and they get thrown out for doing so. He's opposed to that. He thinks that the government doesn't have a good strategy for dealing with reform. He thinks they haven't been tough enough on education yet. He thinks they're not shouting enough about their transport policy, all this kind of thing. So he, I think, would probably say every time there's turmoil in the government, eyes turn to him because he's always been touted as a future Labour leader or someone who wants the job. That gives him a huge platform to make the argument that Labour needs to change, and he would say that's in the interest of the party.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
yes.
I'm just thinking he's like basically Labour's Robert Jenrick,
Right.
the other brown-eyed boy
Yeah.
in
Well,
politics who is nipping at the leader's heels the whole time.
He says it's not about the leadership, it's about the plan. What is the plan for the economy? And I guess his argument is that what Labour is currently doing is imitating reform too much, losing its soul, losing its progressive identity, and ruling out options that he favours, such as raising taxes or nationalising services.
I think that's true, but I think when you look at what he is literally saying, he is talking about strategy. He frames all of his criticisms of the government in terms of strategy, not in terms of belief or ideology or their core view on what would make the country better. But when you look at his policy suggestions, they are completely opposed to what the government is doing. It's not just a question of what kind of political messaging do you use, what issues do you target the most in the media, what order do you announce things in. It's not actually a question of that. He is proposing putting up income tax, something that the government has said that they will never do, and that they've said in their manifesto they were never going to do, something Rachel Reeves is very opposed to. He's talking about wholesale electoral reform, which the Labour Party doesn't agree with, and Keir Starmer certainly doesn't agree with. He won't go this far because it makes it a personal criticism of Starmer. And in every point in the interview, I challenged him to say something about Starmer himself, and he won't do it. He will only talk about the Labour Party and the way the government is running. But you look at his policy suggestions, they are a fundamental challenge to not just the strategy but the beliefs of the government and the way that this government is operating.
There is a reformish offer, isn't there? What's he saying about the lower rate of tax? Because we've got Nigel Farage having come out and said he wants to take anyone earning under 20 grand a year out of income tax altogether. And then Burnham's revived a Gordon Brown idea that Brown actually had to abandon.
Yes, he thinks that we should reintroduce the 10p rate, which is a lower rate of tax for people on the bottom rung. I mean, obviously that would be popular with low earners. There is a reason why Gordon Brown abandoned it, actually. That Gordon Brown, obviously a great campaigner on child poverty, that's his main thing, and he's still hammering the government today on that. He thought that a lower rate of income tax at the bottom end would bring more people out of poverty, tried it out for a while and concluded that actually it didn't work. Now Burnham wants to bring it back. So whether or not that is a pitch to reform voters, I don't know. I suspect Burnham would say that it's a matter of social justice and equality and, targeting the rich and their big homes in London and the South East rather than normal people who are earning minimum wage. But
I wonder whether the Labour Party purposefully avoided Manchester as the party conference venue precisely because of this man. We're going to Liverpool this weekend. We're up at the Tories, which is in Manchester, the weekend after. I would not be surprised at all, knowing the man's growing ambitions, that Burnham doesn't turn up weirdly at the Conservative Party conference.
Well, I can tell you now, Daily Tea exclusive, that he is going to Conservative Party conference because he told me yesterday.
Tony Diver, scoop getter extraordinaire.
He is doing a panel for the Centre for Social Justice, which is, of course, the big project of Sir Ian Duncan-Smith,
Yes.
Right.
friend of the podcast.
Well, and Labour will love that because we've also quoted Number 10 insiders as describing him as, they said Andy Burnham, if elected, would be Labour's Liz Truss.
Yes.
That's correct, isn't it?
So opponents to Burnham are slagging him off, saying he's Labour's Liz Truss because he will crash the economy.
Yes.
Because he's made some comments about we can't keep on kowtowing to the
To the bond
markets.
market, yes.
And the markets have said, well, sorry, we do kind of control, response to
Unfortunately, if you want
economic
to borrow
policy.
tens of billions of pounds every year, you do actually have to listen to the people that you're borrowing from.
You
That
really
is how it
do,
works.
Tony. That's how it works. Well, there's lots more to come on this story, I'm sure. Tony Diver, well done for your headline grabbing. He's set the agenda this morning, Tony Diver has.
He has.
And we love to see it on the Telegraph. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.